is VP people.
We are your hosts, Taylor and
Enrico
this is Unfiltered Conversations
Global.
where we have the conversations that you want to have.
But you don't.
We have the conversations that you should have
But you don't.
and the conversations that you overall just avoid. So jump in with us today for this episode of
Unfiltered Conversations Global.
Welcome to Unfiltered Conversations Global. We're happy to have you here today. I'm your co-host Taylor, and this is your other co-host.
Eric is VP people.
So today's topic is going to be fantastic. We're going to be discussing whether or not, when building a building, you should incorporate urinals into bathrooms or not. Just kidding. Just kidding, guys. Even though the space allocation, it would just make more sense to have multiple stalls. Whatever. Oh, no. So today we're going to be discussing failure, and we have an awesome kickstart off to this situation where Eric here failed to remove his car keys from his car before locking it
Oh my.
just a moment ago. So we get to discuss failure today.
Yeah.
So that's a failure to remove, huh?
Yeah, I did not think about that as a failure. Oh
Yeah.
my.
So I was telling him, it's not a big deal. I can open it with a coat hanger.
I don't know how that will work.
Have you? Any
Let
guys,
me
do you know about that?
let me just get to know how that will work, and then I think I'll replicate this. Like when my friend forget their key in the car
Yeah,
and it's locked, I'll be
Mr.
like,
Producer,
"Don't
do you know
worry."
about this trick? No. Yeah. Okay. So it's. I think it's rather common. Yeah. I thought it was rather common. I have had to do it on just about every car I have owned because I've locked my keys in there so many times. Like literally, you just take a wire hanger, coil it so it's just a long piece of wire, and then you're able to slip it in the door, either hit the unlock button or grab the handle or flip the lock.
I don't know how that will work. Let's wait and see
Yeah.
after this.
We got to find a hanger though. Maybe we'll drive and get one.
So this topic failure.
Yeah, failure. So lots of people will run away from failure. What's your perspective? Maybe what's the Kenyan perspective on failure? Is it shameful? Is it okay? What's up?
Yeah, failure is associated with shame as well. You're seen not to be able to achieve because in Kenya, success is measured by how well you're doing in life financially. I don't know if it's across the world or the globe, but here it's measured with that. It doesn't matter how many degrees you have that you've become successful in.
Hold on a second. What about if you're Luo?
Luo.
Or is it Luya? Which one of them loves degrees? If you get a degree, you have success.
No, Luo's.
Is it Luo or Luya?
Luo.
I always get them confused, and I'm a terrible person for it.
We don't know if that's true, if it's Luo or Luya, because we have to get to know how many professors of each and every tribe we have. Because you see, there is a tribe
then you're measuring the success. What I think we understand is that culturally it's considered to be a mark of success if you have a degree, right?
Yes.
In which culture?
Across board Kenya.
But more
Luo,
so for which tribe?
More Luo.
Luo, okay.
Yeah, the English matters. You have to speak some proper English for you to be considered a person. And you can listen to many politicians who are Luo. They speak some big words.
Showing off? Mm-hmm. Just showing off their English?
Yeah, to show off their English. Yeah.
Okay.
So, and for information, even they claim Barack Obama to be... Anyway, they don't claim. Barack Obama is from Nyanza. Originally, the father is from Nyanza.
Nyanza region?
Yeah, which is the Luo side of the country.
So he's Luo?
Yeah, he's Luo. Typically, he's Luo.
I bet that is not...
That's why he has the good English. You mix, you mix that with Luo. You get something perfect. Imagine a Luo marrying an English person with all that English.
This is cracking American viewers up. I guarantee it.
Yeah. And any America who didn't know, Obama is Luo, and you need to do some research about Luo. And if you meet one, you'll be impressed on how good they are in English. They might speak better English or complicated or complex English that you American might not even understand.
Okay, so here's a quick follow-up question. What tribe are you?
I'm Luya.
It's brother, sister tribe?
It is. We are in-laws. We are in-laws.
Yeah. Okay. So failure. Back to failure. So lots of measures of success: financial, maybe educational. Here in Kenya, what else?
Yeah, that was considered like education and a good job. A good job, like if you can get a good job that you're providing, you're able to provide for your family and your extended family. Now you're seen as a successful person, and sometimes that later on we can talk about. Sometimes it doesn't. It goes past how you're getting your money, but like if you're just getting money and you're able to provide, you're considered successful. Any other thing, I don't think it's measured as success. So education, like if you get the most degrees, you'll be considered to be successful later on in life, but which is usually not the case. So, and what else can I say on success? So, but like for me, like as a person, failure is not being able to provide for.
That's the biggest failure in your life that you dread.
Yeah.
Coming home, nothing to eat for your kid, your
Nothing
wife.
to eat for
they're
my
just
kids,
looking
for
at
my
you.
wife. They want to go out. I'm not able to provide for that, and I'm not able just to give them the basic. I'm not so fun. I do not fancy an extreme wealth, but that comfortable for my family. They're able to get the basic good. So I dread that a lot, like failing, and that puts me, and that's why I'll measure my success providing for my home and also extended family to a point where, like, if there's surplus, I can now get into community. Now, for me, that will be success. What does failure look to you? And
So for me, I think it's like fulfillment of dreams, whether how big or small. You know, you can measure success that way for a lot of people. That, and a lot of time that's around material things or around wealth or accomplishments. You know, it's kind of varied, but a lot of people want to parse the meaning of success down so that they can justify what they have accomplished and say that they're successful. Whether that's valid or not, you know. I think I actually still, I think in my head, I struggle with this a lot. In my heart, I think I'm settled to a point, but then my head really messes with my heart sometimes. And this was like 2 years ago. I was having a terrible time. We had just moved to Kenya within that year, and it was I don't know. Like, I just look at my life, and I came from the U.S. I was on the leadership track at an awesome organization, and God said through a number of ways that it's time to go to Kenya. We want you to move to Kenya.
Hold a bit. I'm trying to understand this. Like, you're doing what you do on a daily basis, and then there's this voice that comes to you and tells you, leave the United States.
It wasn't a small voice. It was a pillar of fire that went before me. And
go to Kenya.
No, okay. So I mean, this is, you know, hearing God's voice. Yeah, man, that's a whole podcast on itself, is hearing God's voice.
Yeah, because it's interesting because, like, for those who are familiar with Abraham, we know this story of being told, leave this place to go to this place.
Leave Ur.
And you do not know how the future looks like. And you're telling me you're carrying your entire family with you.
It sounds legendary or whatever and special. It's not. I mean, it's not that big a deal. I don't know. Anyway, so I'm dealing with all of these feelings of like, hey, this is what I thought it would look like. We had wanted to buy a house. Even when like we knew we were going to Kenya, I was like, man, it'd be awesome to buy a house. I know the landlord-tenant laws of my state. I can manage it from afar, get good tenants in there, follow up with any issues. Like, no problem. I can get some friends to follow up with some stuff. Like, I was very confident in that. God shut the doors, which was super. frustrating. But then I think about like to this situation with stress levels and stuff, that it was good. So I'm driving down, looking at all of the measures that in my head that is influencing my heart, that it's just like I've got nothing. I've got no success. I'm 30 at the time. I was 35 years old, and just like, you're a failure. Like, you have nothing. You don't have any land. You don't have a house. You don't have a good chunk of money set aside. You don't have any huge accomplishments. Like, this stuff.
So there's still hope
Constantly.
out there. If you're 35 and you feel all is gone, there is a good testimony here.
Oh man, you know how many Kenyans I talk to? They're like, "Oh, we're pretty down off," and then like, "Oh yeah, we've got like 30 acres. Who shall go?" And it's like, what? Like, that's fantastic. Like, don't talk to me about it. You know, like, because as I don't know, there's something with being a man and wanting to own some land and have a place to leave your mark. But anyway, all of this stuff is going through my head.
I'll give you a Kikuyu name.
There's all of this stuff is just sitting there, right? And I'm just driving down, and I'm gonna tell you something. I was crying because it was just, and it was like a couple days before my birthday, and it's like, man, especially like I look at my friends that I was supposed to go in the military with, two different ones, like
They're doing well.
they're doing well, and they're coming up on their retirement.
Oh,
Being able to retire, because we would have, like, I would have gone at 18, and then at 20, like, I could be coming up on being done in the military. Like, come on now. So actually, one of them 17, because it was right out of high school.
Yeah.
And it's just like, that's awesome. I have nothing to show that I could point to. And I'm getting to all this because this was a large amount of what I felt was failure. And I think understanding failure requires that we understand and measure success properly. And so I'm driving down, and it was one of those times where I mean, it was like you hear the Holy Spirit. I mean, I don't know how to articulate this. You know, people, oh, you're hearing voices, you know, like, whatever, man. You know, or like, oh, that you know, cessationists, or, oh, that doesn't happen anymore. You know, it's just, we have the Bible, whatever. I hear God say, how did John the Baptist measure success? And I'm sitting there, like, tears rolling, and I'm thinking about it. This dude was homeless.
yeah.
He wandered around eating bugs and honey.
bugs,
Now,
yeah.
mind you, you know, there's what do they call them, sausage flies? Like, you can get some bugs that taste pretty good, right? It tastes like bacon. And then you combine that with honey, it's like you got the meat and you got dessert. Like, come on.
I'm Luya. I told you, like, in Western, there are these bugs that normally come out when it starts raining. What are they called?
Sausage flies.
Yeah,
They're
sausage
termites.
flies. Yeah, they're termites.
The female termites, princess termites.
So they fly around, and in Western, there's
a lot.
Food. That's food, and I've tasted them, and they don't taste bad. They really taste nice.
I know. A lot of people have told me that's like bacon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Better than bacon.
Yeah.
For those who've tasted it, if you've never tasted, just try it. They're insect-like. They'll give you that feeling, but when you eat them, I think they're rich in protein.
Yeah, and fat.
I know scientists have not yet discovered that, but if you visit, like...
Oh, no, we're on the track to be eating bugs instead of meat. Come on now.
Yeah.
Anyway, so this guy, he's homeless. He doesn't own any property. He doesn't even have a family. He eats bugs and honey. So I'm like, okay, how would this guy measure success? Like, what made Jesus say about this guy that this is the greatest man born of woman up to that point? Like, that's quite the compliment for a God who knows all of eternity to say this is the greatest man of all man born of woman. Like, that's huge. And so he said that about this guy. Okay, what did this guy do that allowed him to be content and considered to be like successful? You have the God of the universe saying that that's success. What did he do?
Yeah.
And I was puzzled, but then it just came, and it was obedience. And a lot of people will say, oh, I felt it in my heart. It's like, no, this is for me an intellectual battle that I have to face. That my continual obedience of God is what I will be measured for in eternity.
True.
Not how many acres, not how many houses, business, money, none of that. But obedience. Now, obedience how? Well, with your finances, obedience with your time, obedience with your family, obedience with the laws of God. Like all of these things play into that, right? So it's a huge.
So now
But here's the thing: it didn't settle with me as okay. Like, oh, okay, that's fine. It's like something I know that has been said to me that is still a battle that I have to face with failure. Now, if we go to like individual circumstance, for some of me, that's the larger kind of failure. And so, like, if you're
like you've talked about so many things,
Yeah.
that I think you've given viewers a broad perspective of failure.
Correct.
Failure can be
Yeah.
a lot of things: family, how you handle your money, because like
your career,
your career. Sometimes we limit failure to just few things. So now you're opening this spectrum and you're opening this this array of a lot of things that can equate to someone being a failure. Okay, that's interesting. That's a very interesting perspective.
yeah. And so, if we look more specifically, like, hey, man, like, I'm not doing well in school. Or I'm really doing terrible on the dating scene, or I'm really having a rough time with my job, or like parenting. Like we're going to experience failure in all of these areas, unless you're one of those like mega nerds in school who always got good grades, and from grade school on up, like. Keep it up, man. Like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Like, unlike the rest of us who have gotten bad grades and have gotten detention and have done very stupid things in school. Or, and then there's also like the moral failures, you know, like you're doing things that, you know, you shouldn't be doing.
Yeah.
And I think those are really in particular for me as a man where I just get eaten up, all of those. Because it's like you need to be a good father, you need to provide, you need to have a career that's worthwhile, making an impact on the world, and you need to have integrity.
Yeah.
And man, you can look back, because you know this is not Facebook. Like, you don't have a Facebook view of your own life. You have the behind the scenes, the raw, uncut, unfiltered version of everything that's happened, and your thoughts about when they're happening.
Sure.
And so it's really weighs heavily on me as a man to look back and see specific types of failures and repeated failures that it's just like, it just wears. It just wears on me, especially like the moral category. Like, am I doing things that are offending this God who has loved me and cared for me in a way that no one else have or could, and reached out and sent his son? Like, I'm offending him, and repeatedly in same ways. Now, one of the greatest compliments that I have feel that I have received in life was that one of my bosses says to me, "You know what, Taylor? You fail, but not in the same ways." So,
expound more on that.
So, in my job, I would be messing up in an area, but then he would point it out, we'd correct it, and it wouldn't have to be revisited. So it's like, okay, now that's taken care of, that's handled, you know, whether it's this HR issue or this way of communication or whatever it was, as those are pointed out, their problems are solved.
Yeah.
And so even in the progression of that career, even to now, it's like fear is not something I'm terrified of. It's something I try to avoid, but not because it's like it in itself is morally bad, but because I want to give my best effort and not fail.
Yeah.
And so when the failure comes, to me, it's what you do in that situation, how you react to the failure. And I think we as men, many times, can take those failure and then internalize it. And Satan will jump in there with his words and be like, yeah, you're a piece of crap. Yeah, you can't do that anymore. You're not worth anything. You can't progress. You can't grow. You can't learn. Nobody wants you around. Like all these things. And that just weighs on us and weighs on us. And I'm sure women is the same way. You know, they feel pressure to succeed in
To
many
meet
areas and
targets.
additional ones. Like, imagine not being able to have kids. And out of your control. You don't have a measure on that.
Yeah, true. You don't.
But internally and societally, Satan will all pressure you and make you think this
Me
is
too.
your failure. And your value and your worth is dropped because of that. And I think that we all face those same kind of narratives from the enemy. And it's so important that we have scripture and that we have a good understanding of success, so that when failure comes, we can shine the light of what
100%.
success looks like on that failure and see that this is this big. This is something very, very small in comparison to the other ways that God would have me be measured in success.
That's interesting. That's really interesting on how, because now you're talking about like how to handle it. You've talked about on how you've given a testimony of your own on how you vision how that should be and how it has been going. So I'm thinking of it to those that who are watching in this context, because like for me, I remember when I was growing up, the first like almost big thing that I was challenged to do was pass my exams. And if I didn't get a good grade, because like now like it's usually televised, like if you do well, people come and celebrate, like the top student.
Your parents give you a car.
You not really a car, not really a car. I wish that was true. Probably I would be having some.
I saw an article about that like last year or 2 years ago, where it's like some kid did great on the KCP, and their parents gave him like a Bentley, or not a Bentley, it was a
Bentley,
Mercedes or something. It was like, what? No, what world is this? Like, so
that
foreign.
But you get those kind of gifts. You get probably clothes. You just are appreciated. For example, you get a gift of a bike. I remember getting a gift of a bike at a point in my life. So at that particular time, success is measured on education. And the time you do really bad in education, you do not feel like you've only disappointed yourself. You feel you've disappointed the entire family. And sometimes for other people, it boils down to the village. Like everyone is...
The whole community is looking to
everyone
you to do
is
well.
looking to you to do well and probably get them out of poverty. And they know like, okay, if you get good education, you become a doctor, it will be beneficial for the society. So like you already have this burden to continue doing well. So that was the first measure. Disappointing my parents on just now morally not being upright, like my morals not being to the point where they want, like me being a disrespectful person. So those are the kind of things that like I really dreaded. Like
I just wanted to point out that when you talked about like a failure towards your parents, and that you referenced being a disrespectful person, I don't think that would be how Americans would classify like being a failure to your parents. Like, so it's just, again, these cultural differences are, I think, really interesting and important to point out. Like this, being able to honor your parents is so integral.
It's big. It's big here. And I don't know how it is in America, but like here, you get praises for that. And you become a script for other kids. Like you become the, in law, we will say you become a precedent.
For others.
For others, like you'll be like, if you go to some family, you'll be like Eric or be like John. He's a good boy. He knows how to talk to people. He's respectful and all those kind of things. But like if you're opposite, also you become a precedent of bad reference.
Oh, I noticed you came home late from school. You'd be like that Taylor guy. Turn out like
that
him.
was failure. Like for me, that time when I was growing up, I was interested with those two things: being respectful to my parents, honoring them, just making them be proud of me across board with my education, with my discipline. That was a very big thing. Now, before, because I was not worried about life because like they were providing. Now I was not worried about finances because I know I'll go home and eat. I didn't care so much about that aspect of life. So that's what I equate to as, for me, that's what I equate like will be success for me and not failure. But if I had failed, it will also be bad. And being in a competitive kind of a structure where it's polygamous, where like you also yearn for that love of your parent, if you do well, they're just forced.
They're going to be looking at you more, talking to you more, praising you more, getting you more
like,
stuff.
They talk to people, like even people like recognize like, okay, it doesn't matter, like this is that kid who does well, the father is really proud of, or the mother is really proud of. And it goes big, it goes far in the society. So that's the measure of success. But like now after maturing, it's different. It's to do with from dating, from getting a good career, providing. If it's business, like how will this business do? And I've been in a place where like I've been in business for a very long time. I've done a number of them. Some have failed, but like the one that I'm doing, they've taken longer before they can get to a place where I want them to get. So like sometimes it eats me up in because like you might find someone coming in and doing the same thing and immediately poop, like they're doing well, because these things that you're doing, they've got potential. They're good things, like the legal background that I have. This is a really good thing that is going to make me have a stable income and all that. And sometimes it doesn't work like that. And you've done everything. But you see, like when you're meeting your peers who are doing well, you're considered like you're backward, you're a failure. You understand? So those are the worries that you get. That was like now at this particular perspective. When I was in the UK, it was to fail. Oh my, it was just to fail. Because I knew the amount of money that my parents were paying.
For you to be there.
For me to be there. And failure was not a question that will linger anywhere in my brain.
Possibility, not even there. It was like failure is not an option.
It is not an option. And I was like, each and every day I was just studying hard so that I will not disappointed. I will not disappoint my parents. Neither will I disappoint myself. And I was thinking, because I was there for quite a while, and I thought like coming out of, imagine you've been taken in the UK, someone who's taken you there, they've sacrificed a lot. Now you're a mature person, you know what sacrifice means. That money is not easily gotten, like someone has worked very hard to get you there. And you go there, you start playing, and you fail, you come back as a failure. But some people decide to remain there. But for me, I chose to come back because like I really needed to pursue my career here in Africa for reason that we can probably have in some other podcast, but like I had my own reason because I had opportunities both the other side. And as you got the calling, now for me, the hardest thing was for me coming back to Kenya because I was going to start from zero. It means I have to get myself into a career still in Kenya because I've already gotten myself into a career. And when you come from a different country, you just don't come and get into the system. You have to go through quite a lot of scrutiny. You have to be taken back to school. Sometimes you question the system, but like that's the process. For you to be a lawyer in Kenya, there are 16 core units that you have to do. And when you're studying in the UK, some of them are not really important. So if you've not done any of that, you'll just have to go back to school, which
That'd be so frustrating.
which is it is really frustrating. And then you take into a university again for another 1 year, and then you proceed now to your professional. Like, it took me another 3 years to get into my profession.
Oh,
You understand? And that also affects your decision to marry, to progress with life. It affects that. And sometimes when you're looking at your peers the way you just indicated earlier, when you're looking at your peers, you kind of feel like, you kind of see yourself almost as a failure, because like they've already gotten to a point where they are stable because they did not move countries. And moving countries might cost instability in your life a lot. And that's what this cost for me, because there I was progressing well, and that's why that decision was very hard for me to make, to come back. So
what is if you had to look at your life in totality?
yeah,
What is your biggest failure?
wow, I've never thought of it in that particular way. Now you're putting me on the spotlight. I have to think about it and give you.
We're not
the
cutting.
answer this.
I'm not going to filter anything out, so you better get going.
My biggest failure. Wow, that's. I think you have to say yours as I'm thinking of my biggest failure.
Well, no one has asked me, so I'm still just.
Yeah. I'm just asking you now. Just tell us about your biggest failure, because you see, I feel like, wow, this is just like, I'm trying to think about those things that I've done that I think if I had done differently, it would be better.
Yeah, I think mine would not be a one like moment where it was like, oh, I had this basketball shot in high school, or I had this shot in soccer where it was, or sorry, football, where, I had the opportunity of winning goal and I missed it. Like, it's nothing like that. For me, it's much more related to like who, and I mentioned this earlier, like who I was and how I carried my faith, particularly in high school and early college. Like, sure, there was things I didn't do, but there was a lot of other stuff where, and like being in the throes of porn addiction and that whole side of stuff is just like, it just influenced the way that you interact with people. And so I really despise thinking about my failures to live out my faith in a way that was radical and in a way that was impactful to others. Like I hate it, because I know that's like missed opportunities are the biggest regret, and so that for me, I would say was the biggest failure at that time, to take my faith seriously enough to integrate it into my life in a way that, again, was radical and impactful. And I don't want to allow that to happen again, and to become a pattern. And so even now, like, I'll look, and far from perfect, obviously, but really do not want to return to that kind of mentality, and really like hypocritical in the two words, a hypocrite, to use or play with a mask. No, man, I hate thinking about that. Because like money, career, like all of that stuff, it's like, yeah, you can always get that or change that outcome in the future. But when you make mistakes like that, like it's for real. So that's probably the biggest failure, and that may, all of that actually may connect back to diving into pornography as a kid. And that being knowing that this is wrong, having heard people talk about it, still failing to resist that temptation, still failing to take the path of righteousness, that probably produced. So, I mean, maybe I can narrow it down to that choice. Failing to resist temptation in that area was, I mean, it would be difficult to look at how many negatives came from that choice. That'd probably be it. Because, I've messed up at work before. I mean, like really bad, like stupid. Like I started working at this place and I was driving a forklift as part of, like, I did it a couple of months out of the year, 3-4 months out of the year as we prepped for a big season. And our warehouse was pretty rough at the time. And we had a garage door it had been jacked up, so it barely opened and closed. So they replaced it. The guy leaves, and I pull this pallet off of a rack, and I'm backing up, and I forget to drop the load, and I back up and hit the door with that load, bent it outwards, literally less than 20 minutes after this guy installed the brand new one. And it was like $800.
Wow.
And
You
I
have to
literally
pay for that?
Oh man, I like there was a bunch of people around too, and so it's just like you don't get to fail in silence or fail in seclusion. It's like, oh great, this audience is here observing my idiocy. So I hop off, I park the forklift, walk inside, sit down in my boss's office, and I tell her, I was like, I just ran into the garage door in the warehouse. And she like laughed. She's like, you're kidding. And I was like, I wish. Like, I wish I was kidding. And that was like, I think we didn't have to replace the whole garage door. It was just the lower two panels, but it was like $500-$600.
Yeah.
But I think about that story when I have employees that work for me or have had employees work for me and they fail.
Yeah.
Because it's like, okay, how was I reacted to in that situation? They didn't make me pay for the door.
Oh.
So it's like, okay, I need to keep that perspective. Like I learned so much from that failure, and the way that I had one of my best bosses I ever had in my life.
And I think that's the most important thing, learning.
Oh, for sure. But man, if you, there's nothing else I'm going to get out of the situation. I already screwed things up royally, so I might as well like look around and say, okay, how can I not be here again? And so I never had that happen again. I never ran into a door with that. But it also like taught me even deeper lessons that I would not necessarily have internalized the same way had I not experienced that. So being able to, I didn't say I wouldn't have been able to learn it. I internalized them differently and probably with different emphasis because I experienced it. That when I have employees or when I have people working for me, when I have stuff that's being done and there's failure. Okay, do I put all of that responsibility on that person? Do I own some of it? Do I take some of it from them so it's easier for them to bear that burden? Like, and it's all, navigating that failure of the other person with them. And so maybe sometimes, no, you're going to bear all of that burden yourself.
Yeah, true.
But more times than not, no, I'm going to absorb part of that failure. Please learn from it. And hope that they're of the same mindset of wanting to not fail again in that way. So there's been, oh man. And then in that same job, like I should have been fired from this job so many times.
You had a good boss, man.
And there was grace upon grace upon grace.
Yeah.
I mean, I sat in this, I essentially like opened another department to administer their goods without their knowledge. And then when the HR was like, no, you can't do that. I was like, I'd do it again. And like they didn't fire me. Like this was literally just like God paving a way. And this is an HR who hated me. Didn't want me hired when I was hired. Like was not in favor of it. However, other people were. And so like just the way that God worked this stuff out. Now, mind you, became very dear friends with that HR. And like progressively over time. But in that situation, it's like, there is no way besides God's grace being impressed upon these people that I stayed in that job. Through these multiple failures.
That's massive favor.
Yes.
Massive favor.
You're telling me, bro. You're telling me. But I will say, like, this job, which turned out to be quite a long time in being employed there, I learned so much in so many different areas. And it was very intentional on God's part and very intentional, but on the leadership part of the organization to grow me, and that was through a lot of failure. and watching the way that other people react to how you fail can
Yeah.
also encourage or discourage your view of yourself in that failure.
Yeah, true. It can either bring you down. Sometimes if they are as merciful as they were to you, it can also help you learn a lot. And sometimes this lesson, maybe God is preparing you to be maybe a boss at a particular time in your life, and you pick a lot from that. And maybe you become this amazing boss, like your boss. Probably your boss failed somewhere, and they understood.
One of the best bosses I've ever had in my life was also the worst. Like progressively, they changed from being the best to the worst.
Wow.
It's just anyway. That's a completely different topic, but
Yeah.
it's so. Now it's your turn.
Yeah.
You've listened to me yapping for a bit. Now it's your turn. Let's hear it. Let's hear it, Mr. Lawyer. Your biggest failure, and let's be careful to let's not incriminating. Unless the statute of limitations is passed, then it's okay. But let's hear it. Biggest failure for Eric.
I think I've had multiple. Like this was on the moral stand. There's a point where I was in the UK and I really needed a job. I didn't care what type of a job.
So you sold your body.
Not selling. Oh my!
You said you didn't care what kind. Okay.
Oh
Okay.
my! Oh, it didn't get to that.
Okay.
So like, if that boss is one day, if they listen to me, they'll be like, "You did this." Oh my! So morally, I was desperate, and I made a move out of desperation. This was one of the big hotels, one top hotels, Marriott Hotel.
Good company.
So yeah, so
In my experience.
I applied for a job as a chef.
Oh,
I didn't have any skill.
is that what the paper said?
No, they didn't say that.
So I went to this culinary school in Nairobi, Kenya.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
So
And you landed it.
I landed the job. And
Okay.
in fact, they did not give the best person the job. They had to give me, and I was the least qualified for that job because I really lied well.
Oh.
And
Kind of surprise yourself too, like oh man,
Yeah.
I did, like these legit people, and all right.
and they go through some scrutiny, and they did their scrutiny, and they really managed to beat all the system on the scrutiny, because like I said my experience was in one top hotel in Kenya, Nairobi, Hilton, and of course Hilton is a top hotel. It's known
Worldwide.
worldwide. So I said I worked at Hilton, and and that was it. And of course, they asked someone that we can contact, and
Did you give him like your
to
buddy?
get on to just say like to farmers that you worked at Hilton and you're doing all these things. And then when I was leaving Nairobi, I had a girlfriend, so I conspired with her.
Oh man,
So
you like went all in on this deception.
yes.
And
So
along the whole way, and this is why like it's so big, because all along the way we know as believers, like, I shouldn't be doing this.
Yeah.
But let me give my girlfriend a call.
Yeah.
And then as it's ringing, you're like, I
Yeah.
shouldn't ask her to do this and enter into this sin with me.
So this was even forgery.
So-
This was bad because I created an email, a Hilton email, a Hilton hotel email. I created that. Yeah.
This is, bro, you went all out.
I created an email, and then I gave her the passwords, and I even directed her on how she can respond to the email when she's asked. And I even, because they needed something from the fax, the ID, and all those kind of things, I created all that.
Bro, you are straight up con man.
Yeah, that's con. That's con. Oh my! I regret that. I cannot.
I'm sorry for picking on you for your greatest failure. I'm not meaning to like kick
I cannot
down.
encourage anyone to do that.
Oh.
And
So you landed the job.
I landed the job.
Now I'm in like story mode. It's like, okay, this is a moral failure. I see
Yeah.
it. But now I want to know, like, okay, so how did it go? Like your first day when
Yeah.
they're like, hey,
I landed the job. At the back of my mind, I knew that I was going to be trained before I start the job.
okay.
So I knew like probably I'll be with another chef inside the hotel because Marriott Hotel is a big hotel. So I knew there'll be multiple chefs. And what happened that day? All the other chefs got sick. So I was the only chef.
Oh man, God
In
is
the hotel.
just teaching you a lesson, homie.
Yes.
So it's just you.
I was the only chef in the hotel. I did not know even to make a simple thing like a burger. I did not know.
So-
And
how much did you fail?
I did fail terribly. I did fail terribly because there was a manual there that in case you didn't know anything, you can read.
Yeah.
I didn't know how to make a burger. I did not know how to make lasagna. I did not know how to make
A roux.
a pizza. I just did not know how to make anything.
And here's these orders dropping in.
And these orders are dropping in. All the waiters are coming down to me with like there are 10 orders of burger, lasagna, pizza, and I do not know how to make any. The advantage that like what made this place not to close that day, the manager knew how to cook. And he was so pissed. I remember looking at his face. He was so pissed. And then I was like, in like I was still trying to justify my lie. In the Hilton, Kenya, we don't make some of these things. So I was more.
Oh yeah, dude, that's even common in Kenya.
Yeah,
where
yeah,
like when you bust
I
a
was-
Kenyan on something, it's like,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah.
it's our culture is different here. This is how we do things.
Yeah, true.
Ah!
Yeah, true. I was like, okay, we that part I had not dealt with, and I'm really sorry. And this guy was so upset. I remember looking at him, and this was a big lesson for me as well. Like, if you do not know anything, it is okay to say you don't know, and you can be taught.
Unless
Yeah.
you're saying that because you're being caught in a lie.
No, like God really exposed me here.
Oh yeah,
He-
I'm
he-
sure that manager looked at you and knew
He did, and
that paper was false.
yeah, and he was like, "He forgive me." And by the time I was like, he allowed me to stay there for a month, and he trained me now. And by the time I was leaving Marriott, I knew how to make a burger.
When you said leaving Marriott,
Yeah.
you mean by the time you were fired?
By the time I was fired, yes.
See how you buttered that? You know how to butter some stuff. You buttered that one up nicely. By the time I was leaving Marriott for other ventures, forcibly. So he kept you on for a month. He didn't fire you that
He
day.
didn't fire me that day.
He gave you the skills and then said, "Okay, now go use your skills somewhere else."
He gave me those skills, and he was like, "Next time, just be honest."
He said it to you.
Yeah.
He knew you lied.
He knew I
Did you
lied.
tell him?
I had to confess, and I was like, I was really desperate for a
When?
job.
When did you tell him? The day you were.
Now the second week,
You told him.
yeah, I told him this. He got disappointed, but he appreciated that.
You were honest.
I was honest with him after realizing I've done a mistake, because there's pressure on me to get a job. Like I needed to get money to just survive.
It doesn't mean what you did was okay.
Yeah.
But it explains why you did
Yeah.
what you did. Again,
Yeah.
doesn't make it okay.
Yeah.
But I think the failures and the way that you're talking about
Yeah.
telling.
Yeah.
Like
Telling.
see, that was a moment for you. I think
Yeah.
that was formative as well. That
Yeah.
I did this terrible thing and then I told the person.
Yeah.
And that is part of the prevention for the future. It's like, I despise telling somebody that I lied to them. So that's part of the impetus for me not to lie.
Yeah. So, and it was a joke when I was getting in, but it got serious. And I realized what that would have even cost the business. Because like
If you didn't cook a burger or something all the way and
Yeah.
sent it out, somebody
Yeah.
got sick.
Yeah, and that day, how that brought a lot of inconvenience to the entire
Staff.
staff and institution.
Oh, Did the waiters even talk to you
Though everyone was upset with me.
for the whole time you worked there?
Not for the whole time.
Just that
but
one day?
later on, they just told me, wow.
Bro.
That was... That
Did
was
it become common knowledge that you were not the chef?
yeah, it was common.
Everybody
knowledge
knew
of this,
after that, didn't they? Were just
Yeah.
like, oh, bro.
Because like I saw these machines that I did not know even how to operate them, and I was
Like?
wow. Like some of the oven that you use to make pizza with.
Set in there, the slow moving.
Yeah, some of
even
those
the ovens,
big-
they don't have the same number system.
Yeah.
Like if it's a quick reheat, it's like 20 seconds or 10 seconds, but it's all on different.
Yeah. So they expected you know all these things if you've been working in this massive hotel in Kenya, Hilton Hotel, and you just did not work in Hilton Hotel. You did not. That was a moral failure
So,
on my side.
but the pressure of
And
your
that's the
needing
biggest.
money.
That's the biggest. Yeah. You do not need to cheat to get money.
And the pressure kept you going there.
Yeah, the pressure kept me going.
So after that first day, humiliation before every one of the waiting staff, all of the busing staff,
You know
and
how-
your manager.
You know how big that place is? I was called, and everyone was called, and I was embarrassed. And it's
But no, here's the crazy thing.
Yeah.
You went back on for your second shift.
yeah, because like this guy later on just became merciful. He was like, yeah, I understand you needed money. If you had told me something different, I would have made you a waiter and made you learn how to do it. And I was like, the reason why I lie, I thought like most of the jobs that I've done in the UK, I was being taught before I sit on the job, and this was different. Maybe that time God wanted to expose my lies.
Yeah.
And like that was a lesson that if you come to me and I can't do anything, I'll be upright and say, I can't do this.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's massive lesson for me. And that's something that I'll pass over to other people down when I meet them.
Like your daughter.
Like my
You're
daughter.
going to tell her that story?
Yeah, I have to tell them that story. Like, you know, this story, like, it's.
Are you going to show her how you made the email?
Do I still have the email address? I think it's somewhere there. If I look for
That's crazy.
If I look for the account, I can be able to get. And I was literally forgiven, and I see how mercy is passed down to me, and that's what I can call the biggest failure of my life. Yeah, was to get into a position that I cannot handle, but through lies. If I had been upright, because they left a good person who knew what they were doing and hired me, and I had zero clue.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Painful.
painful.
So I think it's important to note for me, and I bet Eric as well, like,
Yeah.
we can look back and see where financially we screwed up or we had these huge issues. But I know in my thinking, Eric, you can speak for yourself on this one for sure,
Yeah.
that the reason I don't put those as giant failures is because to me, like, that stuff you can still rectify. Like, one of the key points that sticks in my mind is the founder of KFC,
Yeah.
Colonel Sanders, did not start a restaurant or open a franchise restaurant. I don't remember which one, till he was over 60 years old.
Yeah.
So it's like there's so many things that many people might count as failures that might be worth mentioning, like, oh, I had this opportunity to buy land for super cheap, or this opportunity to get in on XYZ business, but it's like that stuff I can still rectify. Like those opportunities come around often enough. But you can't undo your moral crap you've done.
Yes, true.
And I hate looking back at that and being like, dude, you were a pile.
Yeah.
Like, I would fight myself if I met myself younger.
It's
Like,
true.
you idiot. I'm gonna
you'd be
beat
like,
some sense into you.
Yeah, this is a
because nobody
stupid
has done it,
decision
and
that
maybe
you're
that'll
making.
help you.
Yeah.
You know? Oh.
Yeah. I agree. Because like the whatever wrong things that I consider failure, I will not want to repeat such things. And it's good that sometimes they happen because they made me who I am today. They made me become serious with my beliefs in Christ. And I could see the mercy, and that I passed over. In my first business, I remember hiring a driver. There was this Uber business, and I was excited about the Uber business. And that driver is partly the reason why I failed in that business, because I hired this guy. This guy was good. So he's supposed to drive the car within Nairobi. So I didn't know this guy was going all the way to Western Kenya, which is miles away, which means what the damage it causes to the car, it's
Especially back then.
Yeah.
Before that highway was nice.
yeah, before the highway was nice. Yeah.
So, you know,
at least you've passed through,
Going
you've gone
40
through
miles
the
an hour,
highway.
boom, pothole.
Yeah. Oh.
Oh,
Thanks for good roads. Current, they're not to the point where we want them to be, but now this guy, I trusted this guy because I hired this guy from the church, and I was like, since I'm getting this guy from the church, he's going to be morally upright and he's just going to do the right thing. So he was doing this, and he could send me some money, but it got to a point where he was doing these things because now I had to go and check on what he's doing on the app. Like, what was this guy doing? And that's when I discovered, I even called him one day and asked him, where are you? I need to use the car. He's like, no, I have to drop this client fast so that I can come back. Because I didn't understand why he was not bringing in money, because he was bringing in good money when he started. And then it just got to a point where he could not bring the money, because you trust this guy with your car, you leave it to them, and they'll bring you certain amount of money at the end of the month. So this guy lies to me that he's within Nairobi. So I tell him, okay, I'll be waiting for you in an hour's time. In an hour's time, this guy has not shown up.
Nakuja.
Yeah.
Nakuja.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what he told me. And I was like, okay, what's taking, because the distance that you're telling me, you're supposed to be here latest stop if there's traffic and all that thing. If the Nairobi is experiencing the worst traffic, you need at least 1 hour is minimum. So I go to the app and check, and this guy is not even in Nairobi. He's in a different town. He's in Western Kenya, a town called Kitale. And I call him again. He's lying to me, but I can see the car because I can check the app, and he's still lying to me. But I remembered someone showed me mercy. I had to teach him on how to be a good person and to be a responsible person.
How did you do that?
When he came back, I did switch off the car, because you could switch off the car where it is with the app, with the tracker. You could switch off the car where it is. So now I switched off the car, and this guy, he's calling me and he's telling me, I was coming, but the car is broken. And I told him, I know it's broken. Then I asked him, where are you? And he started, let me just be honest, now I'm not in Nairobi. And I'm like, yeah, I know you're not in Nairobi, and you've been lying to me for the past 4 hours. So it's not a good thing to do. You've been lying to me, you've been using my car in a wrong way, and you've been achieving whatever money you've been achieving with it, which you've not been giving it to me. And yeah, I'll give you one more chance. I'll give you one more chance to just redeem yourself, and that will be good. And then I know he became good again, and I had to refer him to another job. Now he's a transit driver of now the big buses now. But I hope he learned his lesson from there, because I told him that was just wrong.
Yeah.
And I remembered the mercy that someone gave to me, and I was like, okay, I'll just pass.
Yeah. So I think it's important for people to notice how much our managers or leadership mattered even when we failed.
Yes,
That
does matter.
These people came alongside and they bared with us. There's a dope song by Tripoli called Bear With You.
Yeah.
That talks about like these kind of situations where it's like, man, you're failing, but I'm not going to.
You can rap a verse of that
Yeah.
song.
No,
Can you?
yeah,
You
yeah.
can't.
No, get out of here.
Come on.
Anyway,
Come on.
so
Yeah.
you can listen to it. We'll put a link down below.
I'm Zungu rapping. Come on.
Have you heard of Eminem? Mzungu rapping. That guy.
Is Eminem,
Come on.
Eminem, is he really white?
Anyway, whatever. So I think it's really important that we note like these managers and the way we react when we fail is so important. So when you're in that leadership position, like bear that weight well, because it can be the difference on how somebody interprets that entire experience. You know, that manager, man, it would be really hard as that manager to not just fire you when you literally are standing there on the line cooking and can't do anything. Why are you here? Why am I giving you money? Leave. Very easy to have that conversation.
And he paid me at the end. So
Yeah.
thanks to him.
Yeah. So
That I got a valuable lesson in life. And that helps a lot for you, like when you interact with younger ones in the aspect of nurturing. And in our context of Kenya, where money is important, but money is not everything. Other things are also important, like how you carry yourself, how you behave around people, and the relationship you make with people.
your integrity.
Yeah, your integrity is
Mother
important.
of pearl, your integrity.
Yeah.
Yeah, so failure, I think to have a healthy look on it, it's like not something we run away from because I think it's part of the refining process for us. If we were Jesus and we're completely sinless, then it's like, failure would be measured differently.
Yeah.
We would be having ultimate success in that situation as Jesus. But with where we are, it's like even with moral failures, which I think many people would probably rate as their largest failures, like how we react to them is still very important.
Yeah.
So you're going to get people, whether you're in the dating scene or whether you're in the married scene, like, suck at raising my kids. Like, I'm not investing time in there. Life's not over. Like, how are you going to react to the failure when you know it's a failure? Are you going to keep doing it? Are you going to do things to change it?
Yeah.
You know, like all of the, I cheated on my wife. Well, frickin' own it.
Yeah.
Go to her, tell her, talk to her, commit to her.
Yeah.
And if she decides to leave you, know that that's not an unreasonable choice.
Yeah.
And learn from it. Like, don't run away from consequences because that's childish. You know, like we're adults.
Yeah.
And we can learn through failure. We've both talked about that in our lives. We've before the podcast started, talked about other people that we know that they had some major failure in their life that allowed their spouse to exit, and their spouse didn't.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay. So you are learning what in that situation? And how much is that going to weigh on you for not going about that again?
Yes.
My goodness, like sitting there and telling your wife that you've been engaging with porn.
Oh, that's a hard conversation.
Like, and then the follow through with that conversation and the reaction that you're seeing and the weight of your sin on somebody else. It's like, no, I'm not walking down that freaking road again.
Yeah, true.
You know, and I think that those owning your failures is so important. Man, this is a whole topic here because I think there's so much of corporate politics or even politics and like governance that is all about failure mitigation or the site of failure mitigation. I shouldn't say failure mitigation. I should just say the attachment of failure to you and the mitigation of that attachment. My goodness. It was such a relief when I realized like I'm just going to own it. Like, I dropped the ball on that. I didn't finish out that project the way I should, or I didn't execute this timeline in the way I would. I'll get on that now. I'll have it to you by tomorrow. And then you finish it out. And man, you would think, if you admit to people that you failed in a professional or corporate environment, then they're just going to it's just going to compromise the relationship. And sure, there might be jerks out there who do that kind of thing.
And I think sometimes people are afraid because of like fear. Like, when you come up and open up, like I've done this, and you're just afraid of the consequence, afraid of what is going to happen. Like, you've cheated on your wife, you're afraid of the consequence. You've
As you should be.
You've stolen, you're afraid of the consequence.
As you should be.
And the problem is like you as for the viewers, like you'll want to bury that, but the more you continue burying that, when it comes out, it is worse than dealing with it immediately.
100%. Just
Yeah.
own your crap, man.
Yeah, and even in the Bible, we see characters like David. They had to go through some really hard consequences of their sin with
Yeah.
Uriah's wife, their first child dying, quite a lot of things that did happen in David's life that can reflect a lot of our lives, because his story is out there, and sometimes we can pick the good things. We know there are the bad things, but those bad things are there to help us learn things in our lives, that like it's not always roses. It can get bad, but like
Yeah.
owning up to those mistakes. When David was told his mistake, he went down on his knees and he realized he had failed, and he failed multiple times, and he realized the only solace that he had was going back to God and kneeling and asking for forgiveness, and only God could cleanse and direct his path.
And when you say that word cleanse,
Yeah.
that's not comfortable.
Why?
Because cleansing it's like purification, removing parts, taking the bad parts out. And when those bad parts have metastasized or latched on to part of your life, it's like removing them is painful. Like there was I was in college and I was dating this girl, and I have no idea, like this is partially why I've adjusted my view of dating. Like I was so into this, even though the relationship, there was nothing to it. There was nothing to the relationship, and she broke up with me, and it was like my world
Thank you.
ended.
Thank you.
And I look, and then I started like, I literally would just go running, and I hate running. I think it's
Yeah.
whatever. I'm not going to get into that. I despise running, but I just would go running, and it was in the middle of winter. And I would go run, and I would run, and I would pray out loud. And it was through that process that God showed me, like, you're the idiot. You're the one that's been sinning.
Yeah.
I am not cursing you by taking somebody away. Like, you are making stupid choices, and you are misrepresenting me. Oh, that was not comfortable. But it was part of that purification process where it was like, I'm understanding that I can't be like a child and point to God and blame something on him, when it's like, man, I had the full faculties to be able to avoid this situation.
You're true.
And to lead better again, and in that process
and
again,
we always
learn.
look for someone to blame.
Oh, yeah,
Always.
but-
We always look for someone to blame.
And in that process, like, it was easy to just ascribe it to somebody else.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, like, this is me. And if you don't like it, then change it. You know, and that was a huge part of that time with God, that it was a different way of owning it. You know, going and weeping and crying out to him like he did something wrong or your life is so bad, and it's like, dude, shut up. God, like, he's so patient and so good, and he's just like, dude, shut up. Like, this is stupid. You made a ton of mistakes. Now you're eating them up. I love you. We're still good.
Yeah.
But don't try to pin this on me, man. Like, own your stuff and change who you are so it's more in line with who I want you to be. And it was like, okay, God, like, all right, my bad. And you have to apologize to God for treating him that way too.
Yeah, true.
So, but it all turned out to be a very good learning process. But man, as often as I can learn from somebody else's failures, that's the route I want to go. And I think that'll save a lot of our viewers and a lot of us tons of pain and suffering if we can just learn from other people's failures. You know, you don't have to go broke to learn that being broke sucks.
Yeah, true.
And you don't have to go,
sucks.
yeah, and you don't have to jump into porn to know that porn, this is not good. Or you don't have to fail in raising your kids well to know that, yeah, maybe that's bad, you know, like, so applying ourselves to avoid failure, but not as failure is something that is unredeemable.
Yeah, true. So we want to thank you, viewers, for just listening in and just supporting us. Please subscribe down. And the other thing that will be like, if you've got anything that you want to share in regards to failure and some of the amazing topic that you can post down there, we can invite and maybe extend on this topic of failure. Like we can hear different perspective of failure from you guys out there. And it's a good place. Like when we talk about this thing, we get to edify one another and you realize that you're not alone. How you just rectify all this is what matters. How, like from that failure, what you pick on from that matters a lot. What kind of a person do you become after that failure?
And I think as you guys are watching us talk, there's a couple of things. One, we're not pointing you guys towards us like we are something worth following, like we are something worth being fantastic and admired. That hopefully we're just pointing you towards Christ. If you ever feel that it's not the case, let us know. We don't want to be glorifying ourselves. But two, also know that when we're discussing this stuff, it's not like we've achieved some level of mastery over everything that we're talking about. Like I literally am sitting here talking with you multiple times and thinking about current situations in my life where it's like, man, I got to step it up.
Yeah.
Or I'm learning this now or whatever. Like, so as you guys are listening and as we're dialoguing, it's like, we're not talking final products here.
Yeah. Like
we are in workmanship process still. Like we are still being refined. We're still being advanced. And it's like, oh, well, no. Like, I'm quite messed up. Eric, I don't think so. He's pretty awesome guy.
Oh, no.
But
that's not true. That's true.
Quite messed up.
I'm
and so
very messed up.
Just realize that like we're all in this journey together. And we're all having different kind of struggles and different things in our life. So yeah, and I think one of the things I want to encourage all of you guys to do is to do this with somebody else.
Yes.
You know, we are not there with you having a conversation with you. Even if we engage in the comments and have dialogue there, it's not the same as talking with somebody. We're introducing a conversation that you could be having with somebody else or should be having with somebody else. So bring them in. This can be an icebreaker for you to talk with them. Like, oh, listen to this podcast. We'll talk about what it says, and maybe you could jump into stuff. To get that actual life-on-life contact, because I don't really think it's possible through this lens. I think that the way that Jesus did it, where it was just like, hey, I got this dude, I'm rolling, and I'm following, and that's what I'm going to do, like that's the way to do it. That's the way that discipleship happens. And these conversations and this kind of dialogue then amps up to the next level when you're having that life-on-life contact. So yeah, I very much encourage you, share this with a friend, not for the purpose of marketing to expand our influence across the internet. Like, no, like for reality that what is best for us, meaning like people in your situation, people in our situation, is to have the conversation with somebody and to be engaged and to have pushback and to have somebody ask you hard questions. So we really encourage that. We thank you guys for listening today, and we look forward to the next episode with you.
See you guys.